Ho, 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 and a Merry Christmas, everybody. The Christmas edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel is here, and we're going to give you the top 5 things that I think the Cubs want under their Christmas tree. You guys get in the comment section and let me know what you think the top 5 things are. But I'll tell you what, if Santa Claus brought these 5 things to the Cubs this year, I think they'd have a playoff winning season. Hey, before we get into that, though, if you're not part of what we're doing here, let me throw our present to you. It's a free subscription to the Cubs Baseball Channel. Yeah, all you got to do is like and subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we're dropping new content. Give us a thumbs up if you're a Cubs fan. Hey, let's get this thing started. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everybody. All right. Welcome to the show. And I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us. And I hope you're having a great Christmas today. Make sure that you also know that you're welcome to follow me on the socials at Broadcaster Mick. All right. So let's get this thing going. I know, like, Christmas time comes and you're like, what would he want for Christmas? What am I putting on my list for Santa Claus? Well, I put 5 things down that I think that would be fantastic if Santa Claus brought those to the Cubs. And I'm going to start with number 5. Hollywood Pete brings his swag to the show. We didn't see that last year when he came up and joined the Cubs. Yeah, Pete Crow-Armstrong, 0 for 14, had 7 strikeouts, did not look like the guy that we saw in the minor leagues. You know, the defensive player of the year, the guy that has all the swag, that runs the bases as well as anyone I've ever seen. His ability to hit in the clutch. He batted .283 between double and triple A in the minors, 20 home runs, 82 knocked in, scored 98 times. And the minor leagues give out a defensive award that even trumps the Gold Glove, which is something that Hollywood Pete won 2 seasons ago. Last season, he was awarded at the end of the year as the #1 defender in all of minor league baseball, every single level. So that gives you an idea of what he can do. And I'm not always an advocate of these awards. Sometimes they're a little ridiculous, but having watched him play so much, yeah, he's damn good. And you saw a little glimpse of it when he came up to the Cubs in September, but he never really looked comfortable to me. I never saw him with the swag that he plays with. It's a little bit of Ricky Henderson. It's a little bit of Bryce Harper. It's just this thing that he has, and I didn't see it there. I'm sure he was intimidated, and it's a big jump now to go from AAA to the big leagues. You got so much more data at your fingertips at the major league level, but a lot of it just comes down to him being comfortable, believing in himself. And I think that eventually we're going to look back and go, okay, yeah, it was only 14, at bats. He was 0 for 14. It does not make a season, and I've heard Cubs people, even Jed Hoyer said, hey, it's probably good that he didn't succeed. Look at Anthony Rizzo. He went back and then he came and he was all right. I had some Cubs scouts tell me that they didn't think he was ready. Well, the thing that I say is this, is if you're going to push a guy up, at 21, 22 years old through AA, you're not going to have him play the complete season there. Then you move them to AAA, and then you're moving them to the big leagues. If you want them to be seasoned, you probably need to slow down the process of these accelerated trips through the different levels of baseball. But that's not a criticism of the Cubs. It's a criticism of baseball right now. I mean, that's kind of the way that it is. So you wonder why guys get to the big leagues and maybe they're not ready yet. Well, the reason why is they didn't have to do the adjusting in the minor leagues. I don't know if that was the case for Pete Crow-Armstrong, but what I will tell you is that if you open up the present and it's a good Pete Crow-Armstrong and the big leagues, yeah, you're going to be really happy about it because he is a super exciting player. All right, number 4 gift under the tree that could help the Cubs. Matt Mervis answers the call at first. Right now, this is the only option I think that the Cubs have. Now, Rhys Hoskins could be signed. If they sign Cody Bellinger, I'm guessing he plays a ton of first base, just looking at the available roster right now. Mervis is another guy who they accelerated up through the minor league system. 2 years ago, he went from A-ball to AA to AAA. He really never stayed anywhere long enough to bear down and see teams, a bunch of times where they adjust to him. But he didn't. I guess they didn't feel like he needed it because he dominated so much. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was absolutely brilliant 2 years ago in the minor leagues, played for 3 different teams, hit .309 and had 36 home runs and 119 runs batted in. And that was between, the South Bend Cubs, the Tennessee Smokies, and the Iowa Cubs. Then he got called up to the big leagues last year. And eventually, after the experiment that the Cubs made with, putting Eric Hosmer at first base, and you could tell that his career was over. He just didn't have it anymore. Trey Mancini, both of those guys wasted our time because we didn't get a chance to see this guy here, the future. We were kind of stuck in the past. And when the Cubs, moved those guys out, the team started to win more, right? Not to say it was their fault, but they're just washed up. Matt Mervis in 27 games only hit 167. He struck out over a third of his at-bats, 32 strikeouts and 90, 3 home runs and 11 batted in. He just did not look that good. And that was surprising to me. I always wondered how his defense would translate to the major leagues. I didn't think that he was exceptional defensively at first base, but it was his hitting that really got him pushed out. And once the Cubs got Bellinger and put him predominantly at first base before they traded for Jeimer Candelario, it was, the team was struggling, and part of that was Mervis. But then you look at what he did in Iowa, and he put together another really good season. Almost a 400 on base percentage, walks a lot, 22 home runs, 78 runs knocked in, a 282 average. You got to figure that part of that is just the failure that you felt in the major leagues, and then you go back to the minor leagues, and it's like you have to suck on that for a little bit. And to his credit, his numbers did not reflect that. Now, what I will say is that my opinion on going from AAA to the major leagues has changed. And I think part of it is that player development, the minor leagues have changed in baseball. It used to be that A-ball to AA was the toughest jump. That's where you would see a lot of guys kind of, fall down in the way that things are going. But you had a lot more guys that played longer professional careers in AA than you do now. Now it's that AAA to the big leagues jump. And it's always been tough, but it is by far the biggest jump now. Guys get to the major leagues and it's, obviously it's a tough league, but you're just seeing, to me, a lot more failure from good players trying to make that adjustment. And I wonder if it's that players have more technology at their fingertips or what, but some organizations have figured it out. Some of them have had to figure it out. The Athletics, before they traded their last batch of good players away, brought up guys and they figured it out. Obviously the Rays always seem to get guys that can figure it out. The Braves have figured it out. So the Cubs have to figure it out. Maybe having Craig Counsell as their manager, because the Brewers had figured it out. Cubs got to figure it out. Matt Mervis is one of those guys that they need to get figured out. And if they did that, the Matt Mervis upside to me is pretty good. Now, I don't know if it's as good as Rhys Hoskins, just because we know what Rhys Hoskins can do. He can hit for power, strikes out a lot, walks, hits home runs, drives in guys. He's terrible defensively. And, maybe Mervis would be a better option. He certainly would cost less, but my favorite option there would be, obviously maybe Mervis splitting time with Cody Bellinger, because I would love to have Cody Bellinger on. All right, number 3 thing under the Christmas tree to help the Cubs have a great season, get into the playoffs. Can we get the good Drew Smyly and Jameson Taillon? Can we get the good ones? Because we saw the good and the bad of both of these guys. Drew Smyly, beginning of the season, highlighted by an almost perfect game. April, he had a 321 average, and that was really March and April, beginning of the season. Then May, he was 309, and you're going, man, this guy's the ace of the staff. By July, you're going, we got to get this guy out of here. Earned run average was up to 665, and then August was just horrific, almost a 10 ERA. They did move him to the bullpen, and he had a good finish to the season. He wants to be a starter. The Cubs could certainly use him as a starter. He's paid to be a starter, but July and August, an absolute failure for him. And if he had pitched better, Cubs would have made the playoffs. His starts were black holes, honestly, in those months. But we know what he can do, because the beginning of the season, he was really good. So could we get a whole year of the good Drew Smyly, Santa Claus? Because if we did, then maybe some of the fears that we have if we don't get starting pitching, wouldn't be quite as bad. And then there's Jameson Taillon, got the big contract. We got 3 more years of this guy. First half of the season, 6.15 ERA. Second half of the season, a 3.70 ERA. Got better as the season went on. He's still a pitcher to me that I worry about, because you just never know from start to start what this guy's going to give you. He has no consistency to me. And I feel like if I'm Craig Counsell, if I'm managing this team, I just want to know what I'm getting from a guy. Kyle Hendricks, you know what you're getting from him every time he goes out and takes the mound, right? Now, he is one of the best Cubs pitchers, really. I mean, he's top 20 pitcher all time. And if he put together like a couple more really good seasons, surprisingly, and I know some of you guys aren't going to believe me, but he could be one of the top 15, 10 pitchers ever that the Cubs have. And I mean, you're talking about breaking into some pretty elite ranks, but it would take him to kind of follow up the good that we saw last year. But one thing that you can't say is that he's not consistent. Well, Jameson Taillon is inconsistent, Mr. Inconsistent. Did get better as the season went on last year. So look, if you could get the 3.70 ERA Taillon for the entire year, hey, you know what? The guy, when you seen him in that game against the Yankees last year, when he's on, the guy can really pitch. The problem is, and you guys know this too, you'll get that start, and then the next game he looks like the guy pitched against the Diamondbacks or something. I mean, like, oh, there's a 5-run first against the Tigers, and you're like, well, we're out of this one, So he's got to be more consistent. If you could get that out of those two guys, oh man, that would be a great gift from old St. Nick. All right, number 2, Christopher Morel, take third base, man. You're not playing second with Nico there. You're not playing shortstop with Dansby. Now, you can fill in both of those areas. And the problem is that we don't want you as the DH every day. You strike out a lot. You do hit for power. But where you would really benefit the team is to take advantage of that exceptional athleticism and continue to develop mentally to know that aspect of the game, be reliable, and play third base. Because right now there's no option at third base. Some of you guys have said, hey, what if the Cubs signed Matt Chapman? I feel like Matt Chapman, from people that I know, are telling me that he's already starting to come down the back end of his career. I don't know or not. I didn't watch enough games of our friends in Toronto to really tell you that. I do remember him with the A's, and he was really good. But he's a free agent right now. Morel, though, would be a homegrown, much cheaper option, and he has the athletic ability to be a great third baseman. Played third in the Dominican League. We saw some highlights of some great plays, but the problem with Morel is that he is really high and really low. And what I mean by that is watching him play a lot of baseball is that he makes amazing plays, and then he makes awful plays. Like, it goes back to consistency. In the game of baseball, you just want to know what you're getting from the guy, from play to play, from pitch to pitch. And I feel like that's kind of the reason that that David Ross struggled with him. That's why he was in the minor leagues at the beginning of last year, because it certainly wasn't his ability to hit for power. And honestly, if you play third base for me every day, you get the job done. Just say you're just, average big league third baseman defensively, and you get those at bats, you hit us 30 home runs, maybe you get close to 100 RBIs. You don't care about the strikeouts anymore. You're saying, hey, you know what? It's part of the position. You bat him 6th or 7th in the lineup, put him in there every day. He's a great guy. And I know that doesn't really matter, but I love watching him off the field. He takes time to sign autographs. He cares about the fans. It's who he is. We used to call him the hugger because he hugs everybody all the time, and he still does. The guys on your team, guys on the other team. In old baseball, fraternization would get you in trouble. They didn't have Morel on their team, and I know baseball's changed a lot, but he's Mr. Hugger, and he's someone that I'm definitely pulling for. That would help the Cubs out a lot. Now, this is the big gift. Every Christmas you have that one big gift, right? The one that you wait for last. Hey, come on, that's the Red Ryder BB gun, right? Here it is. Like, open him up. Oh, my God, it's what I wanted. Here's the gift that we all want. You ready? Yeah, Bellinger, Sweet Home Chicago, right? Home sweet home, Chicago. Let's bring him home. This is such a tough deal. We talk about it a lot because I think all of us want to see him back in Chicago. We want him on the Cubs. I think the Cubs need him. And honestly, it's starting to look like maybe he needs the Cubs as well, with his agent demanding, $2 million and a multi-year deal. And teams are kind of still like, hey, man, I mean, we talk about it all the time, the soft contact, although I think that's BS, but it's certainly something that the Harvard crowd worries about. And then to me, the fact that he struggled and couldn't get on the field for the Dodgers the 2 seasons before last year. Obviously, he says, and his agent says, it's because of injuries, and it probably was. The issue is, though, for the Cubs, is that you're dealing with Scott Boras. Here's the price. We're not going down. It's not a negotiation, right? You're going to meet this price or not? And teams are like, I don't know. Like, what about the 2 years? What about the contact? And then, his agent's like, well, but look at those numbers. He's the comeback player of the year. He's a former MVP. He's only 28 years old. He's got a lot of baseball left, which he's right. So if you're the Cubs, it puts you in a spot. You're the guys you want are all represented by the same agent, and that same agent is a pain in the ass. So it's like, hey, I don't feel like we're having a real negotiation. I feel like you're telling us what you want, and you're not giving us what we want, or you're not meeting us halfway, or whatever, right? Well, a lot of times these drag out, and they go on and on and on, and part of the negotiating skill, if you want to call that, of Scott Boras is that he's going to wait, and he's going to wait, and he's going to wait, and he's going to see if someone's going to come down or come up to their offer, and he's not going to come down. I've even seen it where he's had guys that don't sign, and then the season starts, right? He'll have guys sit out if they'll do it, and because it's going to help him with other negotiations, which, is crazy to think about. Now, and I'm not saying that's happened recently, but I've seen it before. Like, hey, don't take this deal. Don't take this deal. And then, eventually they get a deal, I guess, that they like. But Cody Bellinger's a great fit for the Cubs. It's not just, hey, he's great for the Cubs. The Cubs are great for Cody Bellinger, too. It's a good fit. Putting another great defender at third base in Chapman, who is a Gold Glover, would be okay, but he's another one of these strikeout guys, and sometimes inconsistent at the plate. If I'm the Cubs, I'd much rather have Morel play third, or maybe Matt Shaw, or maybe BJ Murray, not to be mistaken for BJ Armstrong, the the great former Bull, part of the greatest basketball teams of all time, which I one time said mistakenly. But you got other options there. I just don't know when those options will be ready. I know this. Cody Bellinger and the Cubs would be a great match. And if it doesn't happen, and maybe the Cubs finally just throw their hands in the air and say, hey, we're not dealing with Scott Boras at all. He can have his guys go other places. And then if that happens, obviously we're going to have to look and see where this thing could improve. All right, guys, that's it. That's my list. Hope you have a great Christmas, and we will talk to you again tomorrow here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Thanks for hanging out, and have, again, a fantastic Christmas.